Oh, okay. So I remixed that song. I think it's. You know the song?
No.
Is it?
I hate myself for loving you.
Oh, okay.
Can't
No,
breathe
it was
free.
not even close to that.
Okay.
I made a version special for me. Ready? I hate myself.
It's good.
Beautiful. That's good.
It really speaks to
Beautiful,
me.
man.
That's what, I think that's going to be our generation.
All right, hold on. I have another intro I wanted to work in there. Oh yeah, welcome to the new year, everybody.
Yay.
I'm really excited. This is probably our second year as a podcast, through a couple episodes, and learned a lot last year. I'm looking forward to learning a lot this year. I've already learned so much from you guys. Jake, I learned that even if there isn't an assigned value to life, or not assigned value, assigned meaning to life, the meaning that I give it is a valid meaning. Frank, I learned from you that I shouldn't be mad at the market. The market is what it is. Things are the way that they are, and you just got to learn to work with it. Chris, I learned that some people are insane. Genevieve,
Yes, sir.
Genevieve, I learned that you can pretend to make meat out of all veg plants and stuff in the world. And Lisa, I learned that not all tormented planer being salad fingers need to be summarily executed. It's really been a good year last year, and I'm looking forward to what I learn next year.
I'm glad you learned that.
It is 2019. It is TGNA season 3.
Okay. Oh yeah. Ooh. Oh wait. No, sorry. I
Trace.
have one more thing I need to say. I just read this tweet. It's from the government, the U.S. government. I don't know who wrote it, but maybe.
Wait, so the tweets are considered essential personnel?
Like from at U.S. Gov.
It's
They didn't
from the
shut that down?
government. This is official. The tweet says, vegetables are fucking stupid, and no one likes them. So, me question Jake, Genevieve, why dumb?
Bill, I couldn't agree more.
Precisely.
I have no counter argument. Clearly, my life has been a lie.
Glad the government spent $80 million on that study that I just fucking destroyed you with.
Yeah,
Fucking
I'm feeling that one.
Finally, we have answers.
Ben Billy Two Guns Apiro destroys 2 veg cucks
Veg cucks?
with fax machines and logical machines.
That was
Mostly the fax machine.
Yeah, fax machines.
Which, by the way, you can fax us at 1-800.
Got junk.
Correct.
All right, I think we're ready to get started. Welcome to season 3 of TGNA.
Fax us
Episode.
for clip art.
Man.
Episode 62.
Oh, we're not at that sexy 69 yet?
No.
Oh,
Fuck
man.
me.
No, but we're doing that one naked, so
Yeah. It's just going to be recording a lot of wet slaps, I think.
I think so.
All right, I'm Big Billy. I continue my streak of sweatpants Sundays. I love it. I love it.
Nice. And I'm Chris. And wet slapping, we're using meat to make it the meat slaps too.
I'm using your meat, bud.
We're
Yeah.
artists. We can do whatever we like.
I'm Genevieve, and I am wearing dog socks.
Did you fucking burp on the microphone?
did.
Did you kill a dog to make those socks?
No, look, it's just so
Because you'd be a pretty
heavy.
shitty vegan
And
if you
it's
did.
got feeties on the bottom of the feet.
I see.
So I've now got extra feet on my feet.
You're a dog killer, Kyle.
What a goddamn beginning. She burped on the microphone.
Yeah.
Frank used to be
Happy
the only
New
one.
Year.
Now he's professional.
Used to be
Yeah.
the one to do that?
Yeah.
Don't tempt him.
Yeah, I'll do it all day long.
Please don't fart on the microphone again. Lisa, please get us started.
Still proud of that.
I'm Lisa, and I just baked bread. I don't remember if that was actually recorded earlier, but I'm very proud of it, and I'm going to say it again.
I'm Frank. For once, I'm going to let other people talk.
All right.
Oh,
Whoa.
how generous.
I'm Jake, and I, new year, new beginnings, and I still hate all of you.
But it's a new
Tremendous.
hate.
So we're going to give a, what do you hate, actually?
What do I hate?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
that's a list.
the easier answer will be the things I don't,
What don't you hate?
because it's a shorter list. Porn,
Okay.
hard drugs like crack and other things. Mostly crack. I do a lot of that. Did I say porn? I said porn.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That's really all you
Porn
need.
and crack.
Nice.
And family.
That's an awesome
What about
existence.
crack porn?
I'm dedicated to my 7 kids also.
that you don't know.
I've never met.
All right.
But they're out
all
there.
crack babies.
Yeah. A fun little known fact, every time Jake ever had sex, he begat a baby.
Yeah. Raw dogging.
So 7
Even
times.
with other men.
Yeah. Figure that out.
Especially.
All right. So here's what I think we should hit today. Everybody else is talking about it. Maybe people will listen to us since we're talking about it now. On the YouTubes, a lot of people have been getting demonetized because their content is no.
Define no.
Well, YouTube thinks it's not so great. I think it started originally as like hate stuff.
Some Coca-Cola ads or something ran on a white supremacist channel with fewer than 1,000 subs. And bigger people found out about it, raised a big stink. And therefore, everyone else who were professional ad-based YouTubers had the rug pulled out from under them. And this was a few years ago at this point.
Yeah.
But the saga continues.
It's pretty far down now. And so it got to a point where it can be really difficult to make money through YouTube itself, through monetizing videos. Oftentimes, content creators are given strikes, either copyright strikes or content warnings or whatever that are unfounded. And it can be difficult to challenge if you're not big enough, at least the experiences that I've read about.
Depending on what exactly happens and how other people choose to flag your account, it has happened where people have had their entire livelihoods deleted overnight. No warning, no, in the most extreme cases, like, yeah, they had just hit a stride where they were making enough money to kind of live on, and were just moving their life in that direction, or already had arrived at that point where they were professional YouTubers, and they get hit with like 3 copyright claims at once, and the YouTube system is very much a guilty till proven innocent. And if you get 3 of those, your channel is just wiped.
So, I
think
a lot of users had moved to taking in content from their fan base of listeners or whatever through Patreon. So what you can do is I think you can set up a monthly contribution through Patreon.
You can set up recurring contributions. You can set up various dollar like tier amounts, right? So whatever, if you contribute $5 a month, you get access to the private Discord, say, or if you do like $10 a month, you like get entered into a drawings of some type, right, for swag or just giveaways on the channel. And the creators can set up any variety of tiers and perks and stuff. And like the one I'm the most familiar with is the Drunken Peasants, because I like them a lot. I've watched them since they started, and I contribute. I give them $15 for some of the perks. But they have a tier where like they only allow like 6 people to sign up for it. As an example of an upper extreme, if you pledge $100 a month, which by the way you can just shut off again, there's nothing stopping you. You get to choose a segment for one of their episodes in that month and appear on the show with them.
Whoa!
It's pretty cool.
Ooh.
It's pretty cool. And then they only have so many slots for both scheduling reasons and because they don't want necessarily to be abusive.
Right.
But it's totally dictated by the creator, and you don't have to do any of that. You can if you. The great thing about it is it's a pay what you want, including nothing. And under the tier like perk structure, if you really like a given provider, I mean, there are people who signed up for that $100 a month thing and who maintain it because they're like, and once you do that, like you wind up being like friends with them, and you're subsidized, you're patronizing them through Patreon, it's their choice to do that. Everyone else can see like the main base level shit. In their case, two episodes between 2 and 3 hours, like ours, except it's video and it's video commentary on other like videos. It's just their format. Roughly 5 to 6 hours of content every week, streamed live and viewable afterward, for free. You don't have to pay them a dime. And they get to put out all that content because of the people who do pay them.
Right.
We have a Patreon open. We have $0 coming in. We have 0 tiers set up. I don't want to be, but we all have careers ahead of us and like full-time jobs. And I have even if the money were coming in where we could do, where, at least one of us could service the show and put out the content as regularly as I think we would like to. Otherwise, I wouldn't even be inclined to leave my job, right? So I'm cool with it. The Patreon's there if for some reason someone really likes us. And if there is ever a following that comes out of it, it's already there so we can grow and we can start talking about tiers.
Listen, if you guys make it so that I can quit my job, I will. And I'll do, like softcore Skinemax for you guys every week. No problem.
Just the audio, though.
Just the
No, I'll stream it and me reading really saucy books if that's what you're into. Whatever. I mean, I am beholden to your dollar. I'll be a dancing monkey. I don't give a shit.
Oh my God, 2 things. We should do something for our first $1. Like whoever donates the first $1 will send you something.
We'll send you $2.
It'll be Bill's dad.
$2.
100%. It's Bill's dad that would do that.
Which is easy. And we just have to like drive it over.
Or maybe my mom. I think she listens once in a while.
In case my boss is listening to this episode, I don't intend on leaving my job.
Not really.
I think this is a really unlikely situation, which is why I could say if they paid me enough money to forgo my career.
Point being, I'm not trying to shill, right? Yeah. Which a lot of people, a lot of professional streamers, YouTubers, etc., get some flack for that because some of them try to hit it especially hard. With the shilling, but it's a livelihood. I don't begrudge them. Yes.
I say, Bill, I think the real step would be to start recording your, let's say like erotic novel version of Black Wake.
Oh my God.
And just do that for different games.
Did I tell you boys and girls about this?
No.
Well, I was playing Black Wake, and if the listeners aren't familiar, it's a pirate game, and it's really goofy, but it's, you're on a team with, it's mostly male characters, but you can play a female character, but most people just go with the default, I think. Who cares? Anyway, you're sailing around on a ship and you're shooting other ships with old-timey cannons and old-timey guns, and sometimes you tie up with other ships. And as we were sailing along, I pulled out my spear because I have like a boarding pike, and I walked up to the captain and I
stabbed him?
I thrust with all my might this hardened shaft deep into his body. But a man with such experience seemed unperturbed by such penetration, and seeing my struggle to garner a reaction from this grizzled captain, one of my shipmates came over and pulled out his stick and began jamming it into the captain as well. And we thrust, and he was never broken. So I went back to mingling among the salty seamen aboard my ship. And so I did like a whole 3 games of that. And
Man.
Like on the mic with his team.
yeah, on the mic over the thing. And I was like, this is so dumb. So I would stop and they'd be like, keep going, bro. I'd like pick up a bucket and I'd run over to somebody and like toss it on them, and I'd be like,
a bucket of water, or the bucket itself?
A bucket of water, and I'd be like, I see my shipmate has become all wet at the sight of me. We make eye contact, and really it's just my character looking into the character's face, and I wait for a reaction. They'd like nod yes.
With their whole body too.
Yeah. So yeah,
That's amazing.
You give us
I can only get so erect.
You give us Patreon money. You got plenty of that coming through, no problem.
Oh man.
But so here's the new development with Patreon, as I understand it. And how do I understand it? Well, I listened to Joe Rogan talk about it. Our podcasts are really similar. I mean, he only gets 1.9 million listeners, so it's not
chump change.
And we just have 1.9 listeners.
Yeah.
Not quite a second person. Very close.
But
Real borderline.
the story that I got is that this English fella was off the cuff addressing racist white folk. And he said, y'all are saying that these persons of color are the big bad. You know the word I'm talking about. The big bad. But he said it. And he goes, when in fact you are acting like the big bad. And everybody thought that was really, really horrible. So Patreon said, you can't get money on our platform anymore. Now, it wasn't on their site. It wasn't even on his channel. He was like a guest on somebody else's program. But Patreon said, no more money for you from us. And it has kicked off a bit of an event, and a number of free speech advocate YouTubers and who have been collecting their money through YouTube are like, we're fucking done. We're out of here. You guys are controlling speech through your money platforms, which it doesn't really make sense, or it's not good anyway. I think Jordan Peterson got on with one other guy. Now, if you're listening, you're like, oh, Jordan Peterson, that alt-right hate Nazi. I don't think you've listened to him very much.
He's a dipshit, but go on.
I don't think he's a Nazi, though.
No, I think he's a dipshit.
Interesting. So, anyway, he's like, we're going to make our own platform. So let's see if that works out. But yeah, that's the current state of it. Basically, we've entered into this discussion, and it's heating up on what is the role of private corporations in dissemination of free expression. And the way that it's aligned itself recently, I found, is that the people who are getting torn down are being accused of hateful speech, being racist, white supremacist, or whatever.
It's not exclusively that. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I don't know if it got necessarily the same amount of press, so to speak, as what you're describing. But a couple to a few months ago, several right-leaning, and I'm generally left-leaning, by the way, several right-leaning independent creators of various types who were on the Patreon platform, gun channels, people who were deliberately, openly apolitical. They just had a focus on something associated with the right, guns being the most prominent of those sort of subsets, because they're actually not really a right-wing thing. It just shows up more often under the right-wing banner when the controversial aspects of it are being discussed. A lot of those guys have gotten taken down, and even places like PayPal and certain credit card companies were refusing to process transactions because of this kind of vague association with some political alignment. Well, when it's not real.
That's what we're getting. That's what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this, the people so far who've been accused, at least what I noticed, I'll say in my experience before it was the gun people, it was people being accused of hateful speech. And it's like, it seems to me like trying to oppose the pornography regulation in the UK. Nobody wants to be the guy who stands up for porn. Nobody wants to be the guy who stands up for the right of somebody you disagree with disseminating abhorrent ideas, because if you get enough people together, they can make you look really bad. But the response that I've gotten in recognizing that, like, this probably isn't a great practice, the censorship through these huge corporations that have a stranglehold on effective platforms of multimedia dissemination, is that, oh, well, they're a private company and they can do whatever they like to do, which, okay. However, I think that a number of people that I've had this conversation with also put forth the idea that corporations have a surprisingly large and perhaps inappropriate amount of influence in American politics, through how much money they can donate to campaigns and stuff. And in the same breath, will say it's totally fine that they can shut these things down because they're shutting down things I don't like. So, I think it's getting pretty interesting because there's a lawsuit going on that like if you serve as essentially a town square, even though you're a private entity, you are beholden to First Amendment regulation. I think that's being pushed on one avenue, but I've sort of talked myself out. What do you guys think about this whole thing? It's really a bizarre new age problem, I would think. I suppose back in the day, with the printing press, if Benny Franklin didn't like he invented the printing press, right?
No.
Oh, it was Sam Smith, right? If he didn't like your thing, you just...
What?
No, it was Will Smith.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was getting jiggy with it.
Exactly. What were you going to say, G?
Not knowing if there are any of these out there, but it seems to me the obvious solution or the immediate solution would be that people who are leaning more right or corporations who are leaning more right, someone out there who's sort of leaning into that way should be making a site like Patreon or starting a company like that or some sort of spot where they can go out and have free speech and
yeah, I'm definitely thinking the same thing. This is the problem of having only one place to have this format, this platform of making money on it. Like they have a monopoly
of facilitating like consumer donations to a producer
right.
of content, essentially.
Yeah, they're the only ones. Like how there's only really Facebook and Twitter. There's Facebook. That's the only format for like that type of social media. Twitter is the only type for that format. So there's no like alternatives for like any of these platforms. Like YouTube is the only one that I'm aware of that has that platform. So there's really nowhere else to go right now.
Here's the difference with that analogy. And I think it's a pretty good analogy anyway, but your Twitters and your Facebooks and your Instagrams, etc. Right now, I technically have a Twitter account or two. I
also we have
use them
account.
like we have a Twitter account that someone never does anything on. Who insisted on having control.
It's you, Frank. It's you.
I'm gonna need that password, buddy. So, they have niches for sure. But many people use Facebook the way they might use Twitter. Facebook is like the home entertainment system attempt at social media. It's got way too much going on. And recent legal and ethical shit aside, each of these platforms are unique, but they, if you want a given feature on one of them, you probably have to use that specific one. But they don't have the same kind of like monopolization that a Patreon has or a YouTube has, or it's almost getting to the point to what Amazon has, right? Not quite to the same extent. So I think you're right, but it's more dire in this case because people's livelihoods are directly relying on it, the whole point of free speech is not to stick up for the popular opinion. It is to stick up for the unpopular one, because the unpopular one can be the right one and it can prevail. And if an unpopular opinion is genuinely abhorrent, like some type of racist thing, say, and it gets popular enough to become the dominant force, that sucks. But it's what that society fucking deserves. And they will pay for it in some other way. You know what I mean? And to try to stop that from happening is to try to pump the brakes on evolution itself. Okay? Not biological, but societal. It's going to happen regardless. All that this does is isolate the Jordan Petersons and the Alex Jones and the Ben Shapiros, vastly different people who fall on one side of a broad spectrum on most things. You're putting all these people together. You're giving them an echo chamber, essentially, which is only going to make the worst ideas even worse and give them more of a foothold with more people, instead of letting them be open to the public for everyone else to shit on. That's how you kill bad ideas. You present them to the open marketplace, and the open marketplace either validates or annihilates.
Well, I think what it is a general fear of opponents of certain ideas that everyone else is so dumb or malleable or open to suggestion that they cannot, in fact, determine whether or not ideas are good or bad. And that's what's always frustrated me with these discussions, in that I think you need to fundamentally be unafraid of your fellow citizen in order to be a proponent of a government that continues to recognize individual freedoms. Because you have to constantly give the benefit of the doubt to the person next to you, because individual freedoms can in fact be very dangerous. If somebody is a malevolent actor, and enough people are malevolent actors, then bad things can happen. People have access to
bad movies, right?
Yeah, like bad movies. Like, I'm going to skip over some more inflammatory subjects, but let's just take, for instance, how easily it is to rent a truck. Yesterday, I rented a 16-foot truck, and I drove it 500 miles around the state, and I did a bunch of really good work. But we saw in Nice, France, somebody ran over and killed a bunch of people.
In a rental?
I think he stole it.
Oh.
In New York, a truck, I'm pretty sure it was Home Depot. I think it's news, but please look it up. I don't want to speak out of turn. They rented it and they ran down a biker in a bike lane with a truck that you can rent for $20. Now, if you were to look at it and you say, I don't want someone to get hit with a truck again, how do I stop it right now? How do I stop this? What is the most obvious way to stop this? You say, all right, we'll make it harder for people to rent trucks. Let's check on everybody and see if they have a proclivity to running people down with trucks. Because an incredibly small percentage of people use them in this way, and it was harmful. And now that the idea is in the air, it might happen a lot more frequently. We don't want that to happen. You don't need trucks. You don't need a truck. Well, you end up discussing, should your average fellow citizen be allowed to go and rent a truck so that they don't need individual ownership of a vehicle to do what they need to do, and you run the risk of somebody doing something really awful? Or do we, in the name of security, remove all this other stuff to try to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And I think that, while probably not the most articulate and refined walkthrough I've ever done, I think it sort of can be applied to a broad spectrum of rights, especially here in the States. Like the different approaches that people take to these concerns. You know, we can do X, but people can do bad version of X, and that's really dangerous. We should logically, with common sense, limit X. Right now, I see that happening a lot with free speech, and it troubles me because, like you said, how it's supposed to work is that in the marketplace of ideas, shitty ones get pushed aside, and good ones, even if they're a minority opinion, catch on and they permeate throughout society.
I want to clarify, that's not necessarily always true, right?
Correct.
But the reason why that society may deserve that worse outcome potentially would be for things like, I don't know, your education system sucks, and therefore there are more stupid people running around who can vote. Say.
Example.
Well,
Example, the U.S. present day.
I'll put out.
Can you use it in a
I
sentence?
take umbrage with the assertion that an uneducated person is stupid, but I hear what you're saying.
I think we could easily continue down this particular rabbit hole, but to attempt to circle back a bit, there already exists the requisite legal stuff to absolve any private corporation of any wrongdoing of their users. It's already in terms of services all over the map.
As an example, if Patreon let someone show up.
The views of our
And,
users
like,
do not reflect the views of Patron Inc. or
Right.
whatever.
Right. So it would just be like us in trouble. if
One line of
someone-
fine print.
Yeah.
Okay, to absolve any liability concerns, right? The issue is that people are either already in power at the organizations or influencing those in power at a given company to assert, like, no, that's not good enough. You need to, this is all some type of popular demand, real or perceived, to no, you can't, you should not, it's immoral for you to absolve yourself of that responsibility. Take the responsibility, police the content.
So, and what I think, and I agree with your assertion here, and the way that I'm interpreting it is this, the issue becomes framed into protection of, like, hateful rhetoric, because, and ultimately I think it is, Frank has told me before, it is a market decision, not about this specific topic, but like the market's going to do what the market's going to do. I don't think these companies have any morality sense. I don't think that it tugs at their heartstrings and that's why they do this. I think they make an assessment of the current climate and they go, if we continue to support this, we're going to lose money because people are going to turn around and say, you're supporting racist, you're supporting people who support child murder or whatever the fuck it is. And they make the business decision. And the reason I think that people are calling for this was this fear of their fellow citizen, that if you have somebody out there with fucked up ideas that you don't like and somebody's allowing them to make money, then they will make that money and they will be able to spread and it would be terrible. And that's ultimately what I was getting at. Mm-hmm. Because in isolation, you know, as when you have an end of the world preacher stomping around your college square, you don't go, oh my God, this guy's going to tear us down, you know? But
you laugh.
Yeah.
Maybe you talk to him a little bit.
You watch people argue with him.
If you know your shit, you do argue with him, right? And you move on.
Or if you're like
and
me.
You remember that?
Or if you're like me, you go, I know this is nonsense and I'm not going to engage, right? And until this guy gets 100 followers, then maybe I'll give a shit. You know what I mean? Like 1,000 followers. It's just, I think it's a difference in where in the process you begin to think that it's really a threat and how do you address it. And I am ultimately of the belief that the limitation of free speech begets much worse consequences than any sort of isolation of no speech helps. And you can say, oh, yelling fire in a crowded theater, you can't do that. Well, no shit, because
you're inciting a panic.
People will
cause.
Immediately have consequences. It's not the proliferation of a bad idea that theaters can catch on fire sometimes, so let's all be fearful always. Don't let anybody speak in the theater because they might shout fire. Just don't shout fire in the theater. And we're moving towards this situation where there's so much there's so much market control by individual corporations, or so few corporations that some sort of collective agreement would be trivial to achieve because there's so few entities, if the pressure is large enough from the vocal community, that you have private corporations not beholden to legally granted American rights because they're private corporations being the arbiters of the exploration or the expression of those rights. You're giving corporations we're not giving it to them. They have it. We're giving them the ability to say, no, you're not allowed to share those ideas. And alternatives do not exist. And you say, well, why don't you just enter the marketplace? Okay, why don't you just start a fucking power plant? That's the thing that I always think of when they say, just start your own. How the fuck would I build a nuclear plant if I wanted to compete with electric power generation?
Well, that's a bit of a different issue.
It is a bit of a different issue, but my point is
even finding the time to be a professional YouTuber on a given side of the spectrum that's not in favor to represent that side of the argument. I think what you're saying, and I think you're right, is that the very platform you have to use to enter that market is going to restrict you.
I'm saying that the barriers to entry are so high that this idea of the free market and new ideas will catch on and proliferate is not as ideally practicable as people who are unconcerned about these private companies limiting expression. I don't think it's as easy as they want to believe that it is. Like, in order to create a competing website, you have to make enough money to pay your bills, maintain your social life, unless, I mean, you want to be some sort of fucking martyr, be a hero. You have to live a regular life and then either gain the expertise yourself to develop those websites or find out who does, find a means to compensate them, get them riled up, get them to agree with you. And all this takes a fuckload of time. And then when you enter the marketplace, you have to deal with the deep pockets of the established players wanting to shut you down. And then if you do succeed, if you get big enough on the radar, they're going to come in and they're going to try to buy you out. And you got to be like, no, I'm not interested.
One view kind of tangentially related to this, that is another force at work here, is and this may or may not be right, but I think it's right, is the old media, the establishment media, trying to cut in on the new media and apply its sensibilities, right? Your Viacoms and NBCs, your Fox Newses, etc., right? Give you an example. All these big news networks have YouTube channels, okay? Because they're not completely stupid. And they put up like clips, right? I think some of them might even stream, right? Depending on the network, they can do whatever they want. But they have their own, at minimum, like clips of their various talk and news segments, right? Things that they choose to share, little sound bites, just put on YouTube, get some views, get a little extra ad revenue, whatever. They can talk about things like war and racism and, I don't know, court proceedings and otherworldly controversial events. No problem. If a private YouTuber, the Drunken Peasants, trying to think.
Us,
right? But I'm not even making an attempt, by the way, to monetize the channel, even if we get big on YouTube. I'm not even going to bother. Why? Why bother?
I want to be rich.
well, we're gonna get shut down.
We'll get like cents per thousands of views.
You could use some sense, you fool.
Die in a fire. So these big media companies on this same platform can talk about these controversial things, get all their same ad revenue, have the ads run, never get demonetized, never get striked, playing copyrighted music on the channel, no license, never get striked. I presume no license anyway. I'm going to go ahead and presume that, I don't know, Good Morning America, for example, if they play some kind of upbeat popular song for more than the allotted however long you can play a copyrighted song without getting penalized as like part of their intro for the day, pretty sure they didn't reach out to whoever owns the rights to that song and pay them a bunch of money to use it once. I'm gonna take that bet. Prove me wrong, somebody, please. Whatever. You or I do it, or even someone with some other more professional YouTuber does it. As soon as the algorithm detects it, demonetized. No ads, no ad revenue. Including things that are not copyrighted. I want to talk about ISIS in Syria. Demonetized. I want to talk about Catholic child abuse scandal. Demonetized. Like the mere mention of one of these controversial terms, and by the way, some of our titles have such terms because we talk about subjects like this. I would presume that just by virtue of going down this road we have today, saying some of the words we have said on the mic in completely appropriate context, none of them particularly offensive. But tell me if I'm wrong, right? Have we dropped any slurs? I don't think so, because we're not those kind of people. But
not
just
even drinking,
saying,
Some of us.
I'm on my second beer, whatever. But just by saying the word racist or putting that term in your title will get you demonetized on YouTube because it's against their policy, but they won't enforce it with the big media companies. Figure that out.
And here's the thing, at least back in the day when you had to flow through the government, they had to, bribe the government to get officials to look the other way. They had to send them to baseball games and put them up with hooers in hotels. And
I love hooers.
It just sounds like
their wings are great.
Dr. Seuss version of prostitutes.
And
Hooers.
we all had to
hooer smelled a hooer.
We all had to we could all suspect but not prove this corruption, and sometimes people get caught, like Blagojevich, right?
Blagojevich.
Yeah, that guy.
Who?
Boy, what a name.
He got caught.
Yeah.
He tried to. I think he tried to sell Obama's Senate seat, Congress seat,
Senate
seat somehow. Anyway, he's in jail, which is pretty surprising. But now,
sometimes the legal system actually works against people in power.
But now,
it generally does. It's just most people
Don't even get to that point.
Well, no, most people just don't like the results of the legal system most of the time.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts.
They don't like how the legal system is set up. And it's true. That's why a lot of people focus on criminal justice reform right now, because the legal system is tilted towards those who have money. Like everything in the world is tilted towards those who have money.
Right,
and our legal system was supposed to be the one thing that didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and it is.
And that's sort of what I'm getting at, is that if you have money or you generate money, now you don't even have to work through the government, because you are in this incredibly, can't think of the word. Everybody's using this space. Everybody's using YouTube, whatever. And YouTube can just go, well, we have these rules, but it doesn't apply to you guys. That's fine. And we go, that's fucking bullshit. And they go, oh, well, don't worry about it. We're the YouTube. This is private. This is party. This is club. So fuck you, man. Oh, we're too busy to notice that.
There is at least more transparency with the government. Not saying perfect or adequate transparency, but there's more of it. Google, YouTube, by all accounts, and we haven't tried, to be fair. This is all second or third hand for my part. Most of what I've been saying today is not first-hand experience. Caveat, pinch of salt, bottle of salt, whatever you got. Rock salt, Himalayan salt candle, fuck you.
Bath salts.
Bath salts.
Mostly
I
bath
need that
salts.
to be
Face-eating
your tagline
bath salts.
somewhere.
Google and YouTube, by all accounts, are pretty impenetrable, especially if you're not a creator at all or not a sufficiently successful one. I think once you hit a certain threshold, you get like a representative, like a single point of contact. You learn their name, you have their direct email at their work, like you can speak to them directly to address your issues, and you get a more timely response. But even that isn't as great as it might sound for some people.
Can you imagine? So it seems rather dire to me, and I'm not really upset with any individual, because we've seen in the past that established corporations will try to manipulate regulators into supporting regulation that keeps down the little guy.
It happens all the time.
And if they can't do that, and you come up with a really good idea, they come in and they say, do you want a bunch of money to go away? You know, like our 200 mile per gallon car or these sweet electric cars that were made 25 years ago and all got returned. Nobody knew where they were. Or, I mean, even look at Waze. Waze was a pretty it still is a pretty great alternative to Google Maps if you're driving in your car. Well, what happened? They got big, they got good, and Google just said, all right, we're going to buy you. And I cannot imagine the Mr. Rogers level of kindness and altruism you would need to have to be like, I have this good idea. I don't want it to be corrupted by corporate interests. You're offering me $30 million? No, thank you. It just seems almost impossible to me. And that's why I think it's concerning that through effective marketing and good business practices and so much market share is being controlled by these big companies, and they can make whatever decisions they can make. I don't want to say collusion, similar decisions to other companies with similar products in the name of moral righteousness, but really it's money. And then you just don't have an American citizen does not have an effective way to share their ideas. And we've seen before, we alive haven't seen it, but we look at American history. We don't even have to look at repressive governments throughout time. Marginalized individuals by this very same government have repressed expression, voting rights, ability to self-govern for years and years and years. And the country worked to throw off those shackles to a degree, and now we're coming back around and we're saying, let's grant this new government the ability to tell people what they can and cannot say. It blows my mind.
Prison.
It blows my mind that the same government that betrayed its people for hundreds of years is now being granted more ability to limit its rights in the name of what? Safety and sensibilities. And if it's not the government, it's the recognition of the ability of responsibility less corporations to make the same decisions. I mean, and that's the thing that really trips me up about like the Citizens United, and corporations are able to, they behave as people legally or something. Maybe Frank, you can explain this better to me, and that they can donate unlimited funds or whatever. I just don't get it, because a corporation, to my understanding, provides you legal shielding. If a company does something horrible, you can sue the company, but the individuals are fine. So you're getting this protection from the law, but shouldn't there be a give and take? And I
think it's a bit more nuanced than that.
It is more nuanced than that, but it's not as nuanced as some people would like.
So I don't know. I don't know how this is good. I don't know how giving somebody who you can't, a group of people, whether governmental or corporate, the ability to control the dissemination of information is in our best interest as citizens, as free people. We've seen it before. Like, people in power are like, I don't want you thinking that way. Don't say this. Don't do that. Get on this fucking train. You said something I don't like. I don't
Fuck
get it.
Police.
Fuck duh police.
Also, yes.
Does anyone can anyone clarify? Can anyone give me perspective on the other side, perhaps, about? I honestly don't get
for
it.
The other side of what?
Like
we need to limit free speech in sensible ways. We need to clarify hate speech, and it should be illegal. You shouldn't be able to say, like, we should increase the penalties for lies. We should, like how they in the UK they had that fucking dork teach a pug to do a Nazi salute, and he's in jail now. Can somebody explain to me how the fuck that's sensible?
I don't think he is. But I think he came very close to being in jail. I haven't kept too close tabs on that, but I believe I saw him on some other YouTube channel, because he was a YouTuber, and he did that to piss off his girlfriend and nothing else.
Right.
Literally, he just taught the pug to like sit and lift up one of its front paws.
Yeah.
Which, by the way,
it's like
you can already do that if you teach them how to shake.
Yeah.
Right. Handshake, give me a paw, whatever. Like all you do is train them specifically to like stick it up and then put it back down instead of like put it in your hand.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. And if you have a particularly treat aggressive dog, they will do it on their own all the time, hoping they'll get a treat. I've seen it. It's hilarious. But he did it under the auspices of making it appear like a Nazi salute, which, by the way, was the American salute too.
What?
Yeah.
When?
Until the early 20th century.
Didn't know that.
Look up really old shit before the Nazi regime came to power, and then the salute fell out of favor. Yeah.
Google really old shit.
There are photos of American classrooms saying the Pledge of Allegiance with the Nazi salute, because it wasn't always the Nazi salute.
Dude, I was.
And the swastika, by the way, is just a
always that.
45-degree rotation or
Yeah.
something, maybe 90,
Yeah.
of a Buddhist symbol.
I think it's 45.
I thought it was mirrored.
Something like that.
No, okay, so
It might be mirrored too.
I'm trying to put together 5 minutes for an open mic, and that was going to be part of my bit. It's a real shame the Nazis were such douchebags, because that salute is hype as shit, dude.
Yeah. We did it too.
You ever look out over a crowd of people, they're all putting their hand in the air, you're just like, oh shit, everybody in the room is fucking psyched.
Yeah.
We're all ready for this.
Yeah, so those fucking Nazis ruined a lot of good shit.
They did, aesthetically, they did a few cool things. It sucks that they were, genocidal maniacs.
Yeah, yeah, that is a big bummer.
That's a bit of a bummer. Yeah.
Man.
There was
It's a bummer.
there was
I don't think my
It's been long enough, right?
I don't think my people suffering was worth it. I'm not sure, but
there's another salute that I thought was kind of cool. And then somebody's gonna be like, "That's a hate." Fucking. Well, I don't know. I'm sorry, but I think it was like back when we invaded Iraq for having a neutron bomb or something. I think they were showing videos of their officials, and their salute was like sort of like the American style salute, but they rolled their hand over so their palm was facing up. I was like, yo, that looks pretty dope. They're like,
that's been in a few places.
Yeah.
It's like a waving, but also
Yeah.
hey.
That's the English.
That's
Yes, the English
really
one.
That's how the
that
English do
someone
it?
was
Yeah, the British
awkwardly
Army.
going for a high five, but then was like, "Oh, yep,
Our
our country's great."
Up high,
But this,
down low.
This brings me back to England, UK, Nazi dog. I have an English friend. He's actually been on the podcast, and I asked him. I was like, this is
The dog has too.
yeah. I was
He's
like,
a good boy.
I was
He's
like,
a good boy.
I was like, this is a fucking embarrassment. This criminal endeavor that your home country is putting on is a fucking embarrassment. Because you got to remember, one of the favorite things for people who aren't from America to do is to shit on America. So I was like, all right, here's one for you.
It's not without cause a lot of the time, right?
Oh no, I know.
But
come on.
we're not alone in the fucked up department.
Right. But I'm saying, if you come over to my house, for burgers, we just had a party that none of you came to on New Year's Day,
I was working.
and there was a giant hole in my wall
I'll have
because
you
I
know.
failed at pulling Ethernet cable through the wall before the party and sealing it up.
Oh no.
You know how many people mentioned it? None. Huh? Why don't you leave my Ethernet cable alone? Fine. I'm going to talk about your Ethernet cable and how it looks like dog shit and it runs through the cat box. So anyway.
So cat shit.
I'm clearly working on more stand-up, and that was not very good. I apologize. I apologize to my family for letting them down. I apologize to my
Shame.
countrymen for...
Shame.
Yeah.
Need a bell.
Anyway, Nazi dogman. We were talking about that, and,
Like man, bear, pig.
my buddy was like...
Nazi dogman.
My buddy's like, well, you can't do that. He's like, we fought a fucking war to beat the Nazis. And I was like, well, then I guess a lot of Iraqis are going to have a hard time with whatever their fucking cultural shit is when they come over to America, because we've been fighting them for a while. I think we killed 1 million of them. What kind of reason is that? And I really sit here dumbfounded on how on earth whatever benefit you think you could derive from the limitation of freedom is outweighed by the possible, and I think with the government, entirely unavoidable abuse that will arise.
The same rationale that led to that guy being tried for teaching his dog to Nazi salute it's not too far removed from the suggestion that the joke I just made about my people's suffering being dubiously not worth it for some of the Nazis' aesthetic choices. Being a half Jew myself could get me tried. Bullshit. It's bullshit. At every level, it's bullshit. And if that particular thread keeps getting pulled, it's the direction it's going to go.
And that's the thing that I don't get. It's like, they'll be like, even people who are defending individuals who make these jokes, they're like, it was a joke. I didn't say it was a good joke. And that's what I read online. If you're going to make a racy joke, an edgy joke, make it good. I'm like, but that's also part of the problem.
Not everyone has the sufficient sense of humor to really nail any joke.
Who the fuck is the arbiter of the quality of jokes?
Right.
We can't, like, this whole idea of having an overarching board of standards on who can practice their given rights, their recognized rights, just cedes so much power to possible corruption. And we have already been betrayed throughout history by these groups. I mean, the same people, the people love to say, oh, individually, I like people. In groups, I hate them. Groups of people are really stupid. But when we put a group of people in charge of us and we just say, just tell us whatever the fuck to do. This is cool. We think that's going to work out.
Are you making an argument for a monarchy? Because I would vote for you as king.
No.
King Billy Two Guns.
Listen, I hate...
I'd vote for you.
I didn't vote for him.
I'm so anti-monarchical.
Look, I'm being oppressed.
That when people were referring to Jay-Z and Beyonce as the American royalty, my blood began to roll to a boil. It is so preposterous. Fine, you want to know what Billy
I know
thinks?
you did not just diss Queen Beyonce.
Queen Bey.
Queen Bee.
Oh my God.
Bye outside.
The veneration of a monarchical style of government
Jesus 2.5.
is
okay.
so goddamn contrary to the idea of individual rights and self-determination. I don't know how people can actually appreciate the continued existence of the royal family. I'm just saying.
The royal family doesn't have any real power anymore, though.
Everyone
If
knows.
you don't, I'm gonna throw this down. We're gonna get a little political, Chris. I'm sorry. If you don't like the flying of the Confederate flag in the United States, you should be abhorred by the celebration of the continued existence of a royal family in other countries. Thousands of years of domination over individuals, pointless wars, endless subjugation. But they're so pretty. They're having such a nice wedding. I just want to be a princess.
Have you seen that palace?
I just want to be in a position of power that I did nothing to maintain or achieve. Meritocracy be damned. There you go, Chris. I'm ready for your counterpoint.
They're just really rich people.
Yeah, but they continue existence as the end of this system that throughout history has done so much wrong. And my point stands that if you are uncomfortable with modern day people flying the Confederate flag because they're just hillbillies driving around in their lifted trucks, then you should also be upset about the people who don't have any real government power and just incredibly rich people who get to meet super influential people all over the country and serve as a beacon of guidance for.
But they can afford to do that.
Bill?
What?
I don't disagree necessarily, but they would not be anywhere near as popular if the people didn't gobble them up. People want them. Enough people want them. Maybe not a majority, but they get enough attention in the first place.
And the people who didn't want them are here.
And what's really fucked up is while your whole description of that, I was thinking it sounded like you were describing the Kardashians.
Yeah, instead of...
Which is also fucked up.
The same rules apply insofar as their popularity continued is concerned, independent of everything you're saying, which I think is pretty accurate. The whole Confederate flag versus that. Yeah, if you're genuinely offended, there's something to be said for being annoyed with monarchical governments. The other half of me is Dutch. The Netherlands still has a royal family. And by the way, it is their system of government.
That's the Dutch pronunciation.
They have socialized healthcare. They have, for better or for worse, they have, things in place. They have good tourism. They have a solid little economy. They're renowned engineers. But they still use a queen, I think, currently. As their, it's an Archer joke. They don't they use a king? But yeah, you're right. Present day, there are examples where that's not the case. And if I'm sure, because the Netherlands is super duper itty bitty tiny bullshit, beautiful little country of extremely tall, mostly English speaking
Freakazoids?
Freakos that are my lineage.
Yeah, what happened, bro?
Oh! Wait, so he's not a freako?
I kind of just insinuated what happened. I was born this way, and you're shaming me for who I am as a person, and I don't really appreciate that.
Are you birth shaming him?
I'm going to tell Patreon to deplatform us. That's what she said.
Like, hey, we're going to try this. Don't let it happen.
Listen, I got the inside scoop on this new podcast. We've been on Patreon for like a year and we have no subscribers, but you still give me
Shut it down.
You still give me a week to
about to heat up. That one guy doesn't like the Queen.
The Queen of Netherlands.
Listen,
I get monthly newsletters for my progress, and they're just blank. I don't know why you send them.
my excuse me. My real issue isn't so much that there are people who like the Queen or whatever. It's in real life. I have engaged in conversation with people who are super duper upset about the flying of the Confederate flag. I guess because they worry not only that racism is still super permeated into American government, but that it will catch on if we allow it to continue to exist and spread, this fear of your fellow citizen. And these same people get super hyped up over the Queen. And it's like, they're like, oh, well, they shouldn't fly the flag because even though they claim it's not, it's about heritage, not hate, it makes so many people upset because it is a symbol of oppression and racism. So many other people see it as that way. So it's fucked if anybody flies it, no matter their intention. And then in the same breath, they'll appreciate this continued existence of this position in the government. They don't have no power. They are still ceremoniously involved. They could, in theory, do things in the government. And they're okay with that for this system of repression that has existed for tons and tons of time and still exists.
Yeah, but I don't think
North
that's a fair
Korea.
comparison.
Why is that?
Because like if you look at like the Confederate flag specifically, right? People say it represents hate and oppression and all that stuff because they waged a war in the name of something that was like the definition of oppression, right? And I'm not saying that the United Kingdom has at any point never waged a war like that, but like if you look at the modern day state of the United Kingdom, they're a fairly competent and rational world actor.
Yeah, and if you look at modern day people flying the Confederate flag, they're not fighting to secede from the United States and typically hold no ability to even begin to nudge the country in that direction. If you're going to compare modern day threat, even now, repressive monarchical government is much more existent than any threat from somebody in a lifted truck flying a Confederate flag. So if we're going to do direct comparison, the monarchy is still more of a threat. And if we want to go historically, more countries have had more problems for a much longer time through similar styles of oppression. I mean, what's serfdom other than slavery?
Yeah, but I mean, that's still like a pretty straw man type argument.
No, it's not.
It is.
They're direct analogs.
But they're not, because like the Confederate flag, right? It was there to represent seceding from the Union to fight for slavery, right? Mm-hmm. The English family was there, like they were just there to rule the United Kingdom, right?
And in practice, by hundreds of years of individual rights being completely diminished and dominated, causing the death of thousands, millions throughout history. Totally repressive. Like, I don't understand the difference. I don't understand how the Confederacy was worse than any monarchy in history, except maybe the modern ones, which are relatively agreeable. Was the Confederacy worse than modern day North Korea?
I think it's just closer to home, man. The United States was post-colony, never had a monarchy, right? We did have a big dumb civil war over states' rights to own slaves, and
we don't control the UK. Like we can't.
And also, like I think if
you can just not stroke your dick over the fucking royal family. That's the thing that I don't get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but
you're so righteous and so fired up that it makes your head explode to see a fucking Confederate flag fly.
I think you're reacting to the most extreme people with that view.
I don't know, dude. I'm surrounded by them.
That's the straw man there. And two...
What the fuck are you talking about? I'm talking about my direct experience.
Yeah, but they're very few and far between.
Not in my experience, and I'm talking about them. I'm not saying you, Frank, who don't like the Confederate flag, or maybe you do, I don't fucking know. I'm not saying you're doing this thing. I'm saying I'm these people who hold these two incongruencies in their mind. I don't get it.
Are you saying that your fellow humans might be
logical.
hypocrites? Because that would be not at all revolutionary.
Yeah, I thought maybe I was missing something.
But and again, like, you know, if you look at the current day, like whatever they did, whatever their transgressions were in the past of any country, monarchy or otherwise, right? they set up a system which allowed it to evolve to a point where they came to modern day sensibilities, right?
England did.
Yeah. And we're specifically talking about England, right?
No, I was talking about an example of monarchical rule.
About the very system of government itself.
Yeah, that's my issue.
I think where the comparison falls apart is that the Confederacy was a system of government totally different. It was actually, sort of similar to the one that was the Union in its structural auspices. It's just that it wanted the ability to maintain certain institutions, slavery.
That was its driving force.
Where the Union did not. Otherwise, these were pretty. The structures were different. I'm sure. I'm not an expert, but they weren't trying to install a king. They weren't trying to install an oligarchy. They were trying to install some type of democratic-ish option like the Union had.
But I think, Jake, even more, the important point is that the Confederate flag represents the idea of a driving force behind the oppression of other people, right?
What is a monarchy if not oppression of other people? And the royal
it's
family
not uniformly. Taxation is theft.
A royal family is representative of a monarchy, and a monarchy is fundamentally the repression of people.
But I
it doesn't have to be, though. Is taxation theft? Because that is the first thing, the first assertion that is taking the same sort of leap.
Yeah. If you want to talk about a straw man, there you go. I'm not saying anything about taxation.
I know you're not saying. I know you're not talking about taxation. I'm saying the type of argument is similar.
And beyond that, Bill, let's not forget, while it operates more like a conventional modern day democracy, or republic similar to the United States, the United Kingdom is still, to this day, a constitutional monarchy.
Yes.
And they are not an oppressive regime.
Well,
therefore,
North Korea is.
Well, yeah, but it's the point that you can have a monarchy that is not oppressive.
Right.
The Confederate
You're
States of
painting with a
America-
broad stroke when it comes to monarchies, man. And I never thought it would be defending monarchies because I don't particularly like them either as a structure of government. But what you pretty much just said is by definition it's oppressive, and we have numerous examples of existing monarchies that are not oppressive. And
I
it's just
think
like
monarchies.
you're speaking in absolutes, and only a Sith does that, man.
I think that monarchies historically that have been repressive far outnumber the successful ones that aren't.
Fine.
Yeah, that's fine, but
So
it
it's
doesn't
like
make
99 to 1.
I don't know if it's that far, and it's irrelevant.
It absolutely is.
But
Throughout the history of humankind.
Citation needed. If you want to make a declarative statement like that, citation needed.
All right. I mean, we could probably look at how many actually exist today, which is quite a few, and then how many of them are good, and then I think before like 1900. Maybe 1800.
Okay, well, there was one confederacy.
Yeah.
And therefore 100% of them.
See, what you're missing
have been shitty.
What you're missing here is the issue that 100% versus 99.9%.
For which number's greater, buddy?
Well, not just that, but again,
if you want to play this game, I'm sorry.
I'm not playing any game. You're being purposefully obtuse to
a bit.
How small
but I think so
the
were you.
difference is.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying I don't understand how people can be so upset that this symbol of a repressive society over here is so much more important than a symbol of an oppressive society over there.
And again, you're making that point that the monarchy is a symbol of an oppressive society, and it like most people disagree with that statement. Like, I think 99% of people think that the royal monarchy today is an oppressive. Like, they are just.
How do you not make the connection between the continued lineage of a family that ruled by divine right?
Because they don't rule under the same sort of government setup. They have
the Confederacy doesn't exist anymore.
Okay, I think we've been spinning our wheels on some of the verbiage you've used, but I think you've also made it very clear that your discomfort here is with specific people or sets of people who show abhorrence to the Confederacy and the Confederate flag still being flown despite the flyers' intentions versus the existing of what has been historically an oppressive regime of government. Fine. Did I get that wrong? I think I got it pretty right.
It's pretty close.
I think it was close enough functionally anyway to get what I'm getting at.
And again, also
you're upset with a perceived hypocrisy that I think is a valid observation of some level of hypocrisy. I don't get why you're so fired up about it, because it's the sort of cognitive dissonance that has plagued the human race forever and still does about a myriad of things.
No, I'm not. I don't think I'm particularly fired up. We were just having an interesting discussion.
But and again, like if you take it like that, right? Almost every, in some manner, right? Almost every government throughout history has been oppressive to someone. The United States government today, like the one that exists to this day, also oppressed people of color and Native Americans. Yes, and Native Americans.
Yeah.
Right? So by that same argument, if you're saying, like, by that same argument that you're making, where if you're against the Confederate flag, you should also be against the monarchy.
The US
you should
flag.
also be against the United States flag, because it
flags.
should then represent oppression, right? And that's the nuance
All
we're
flags.
trying to make here. Is
and they are.
yeah.
They point out how the founding fathers, which a lot of people think are pretty cool dudes, were in fact slave owners and repressive, and Mount Rushmore is terrible. They're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not being inconsistent. I in fact haven't voiced my opinion on whether or not the Confederate flag is a good thing to fly.
Sure.
I just said that I don't like monarchy in any way, and I don't really am not particularly excited that it exists as it does today. But I have learned from you, Frank, that the market does what it gonna do, and the royal family brings a ton of money into the country. I mean, whatever. Like,
Well,
in
and
the end, it doesn't
causes
get me.
as well.
I was just trying to have an intellectual debate here, intellectual discussion about how these people in their minds mesh the two subjects. And you're asserting that they're not directly corollary, I think, and that's interesting. Maybe we could talk about that more later. And you're saying that hypocrisy is unsurprising, and I guess so.
It's not good. It's extremely annoying sometimes. And
And
I
I
get
think-
you. I get why you're annoyed. I think.
I think an unpopular opinion also, right, is like, and this kind of generates the underpins, like, when you're dealing with people, and I'm not saying this isn't you, right? I'm saying this is decidedly not you.
Right.
When you're dealing with someone who falls to an extreme of either end of the political spectrum, they tend to be idealists, right? They tend to want the most form perfect way of doing something possible, right? And like that doesn't necessarily, like, the world doesn't operate like that. You never get things working out perfectly the way you want them to in the real world. So every government, as I said, in history, for the most part, or very nearly every government, has been oppressive in some way, right?
At some point.
Yeah, at some
Not
point.
others.
So, like, you're dealing in degrees of gray here, right? A little bit of oppression is going to happen no matter what.
And that's sort of my issue.
and again, and also, like, to a point earlier we made, like, not everyone is always going to be safe. People will get hurt. Accidents will happen. There will be bad actors.
And people don't get fired up about the same sort of shit, man.
Yeah.
and that's really
There are people who'd rather donate their residual life savings when they have no family left, or even if they do, to a place like PETA, rather than a few strokes short of domestic terror organization focused around animals, rather than give it to starving kids in their own neighborhood or whatever, right? So but people's priorities are just different, and the Confederate flag and its immediate repercussions historically to the U.S. and to, real or imagined, depending on the niche subcategory here, that or issue, or which police shooting we're talking about, right? Or what have you, whatever, right? Whatever context their brain is working in, they might just get more fired up about the Confederate flag and not care about a monarchy across the Atlantic.
And
Plain and simple.
I've got two very, I think, not very, but somewhat nuanced points of just so that I can explain my idea around the Confederate flag, is that people, for the most part, should be allowed to fly it as they so choose. But again, like we said, like you yourself have said, if you choose to fly it and people get angry at you for flying it because you're being an idiot for flying it, then you, like, that, you're getting what you deserve, right?
And
that's your problem to deal with.
yeah, exactly.
At bare minimum, I am of the maximum free speech for the most amount of people type of guy. Okay, you want to fly the Confederate flag, you do you, bro. But if you and I want to be friends, I'm going to have some questions.
Yeah, and here's another thing, right? Here's where I really, really do not like. No state or city, local government, or anything like that should fly the Confederate flag.
And a lot of this started over a municipal building in South Carolina flying the Confederate flag.
Because that is a flag of literal open rebellion against the current government. All right.
I think taking it down in a government place.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Duh. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
You fuck off. Right.
And regardless, also,
if you work for the government and want to put it up in your home, I don't care.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. But get it off the state capitol.
Yeah. You know, I'd never heard it framed as such that it's the flag of secession against the current government.
To be annoying and technical, it's a flag of that rebellion. But yeah.
Right. And it's what actually the Army of Northern Virginia's flag.
Yeah, it's one among dozens of Confederate flags.
Yeah,
it's just the most popular one because it's the slickest looking.
Yeah,
and it does look slick. I mean, aesthetically, right?
But here's
salute. Yeah, right. Why
Come
do the
back to
bad
this
guys get all the
argument.
cool
why do the
stuff?
bad guys? Yeah, why do the bad guys get to look so cool?
Well, Jake, here's ultimately the thing that I think I was getting at, right? And you went about it, I think, in exactly the right way. And where I draw issue with other individuals, and why I point out my perceived hypocrisy, which is still, the jury's out. I'm open to Frank swaying my opinion, but
no one else.
Just Frank.
No one else.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you and I were getting into with that 0.1% thing, but you're like, all right, if you want to be friends with me and you're flying this flag, we have something to talk about, and that's it, right? You can. This idea that you can talk to an individual and this symbol of things means something different to them than it does to millions of other people is a level of open-mindedness and acceptance, of the existence of these gray areas that Frank mentioned. I think that I don't see when I see people applauding what I see as a symbol of monarchy. And ultimately, that's sort of the position that I take. I'm always like, what do you got going on here, right? So it's like, you talk to somebody and it's like, why do you have that? I had a fraternity brother who had it hanging up in his room. And I remember I walked in and I was like, what the fuck are you doing with this here? And he's like, heritage, not hate, bro. And I was like, what? And I got to know him, and he was a good dude. And if his only flaw was that flag, I mean, it was.
I have no beef with. I mean, because there is some fucking heritage there.
If his
that was a war.
flaw was a willed ignorance of the effect that flag could have on people around him, then. I mean, it is what it is. It's one of those things you can decide somebody's a dick or whether they're not, and whether or not you want to be friends with a dick.
And there's a difference there, like between having it up in your college bedroom versus putting it on the back of your pickup truck or on the back of your whatever your car is. Who cares? Yeah. And flashing it around or like wearing a ball cap with it. I think all that's still okay too. I'm not saying they shouldn't be allowed to do it, but it is a different degree of separation, right?
But in my mind, and this is probably my weakest connection, I see the people who are so upset with that, and they're upset with its existence. Part of it is this idea that it'll spread, and this is what I'm talking about with this fear of your fellow countrymen. Like, it's so dangerous that it can't be anywhere.
You know how you make it spread as fast as possible. You take it away, you deplatform them, and you make them all hide together.
Yeah,
all with the same opinion, and you let that shit incubate.
I also don't.
Which is exactly, to get back to the main point, what a lot of this good, probably well-intentioned control of free speech, is so misguided, and it's why the First Amendment exists.
Well, I mean, the road to hell was paved with good intentions, right?
Right.
But what I don't get, another thing that I don't get, because apparently I don't get anything. Why do people think, why are there individuals who think that you can change somebody's mind through compulsion, right? I had this conversation at work with one of my jobs anyway in the past with a couple of guys who were older than me, and we were talking about, they're like, well, you should have free speech, but it should be limited. You shouldn't be able to say lies and stuff like that. There should be bigger crimes. I'm like, we already have libel.
Depending on your depending on the context, that's right. Like for example, one thing that's currently allowed is if, heaven forbid, you're under FBI investigation, they can lie to you. You can't lie back. If they lie to you to try to get an answer they want, that is completely kosher.
Well,
obviously, if you lie back, it's perjury.
I think what they were sort of furthering with me was this idea that lying with a platform where you can be heard saying this lie should be illegal, and I just, I asked him, I was like, do you really think you're so much smarter than everybody else in the whole world? And because they were worried about these dangerous ideas, and they're like, no. Then I'm like, why do you want to force compliance? Why do you want to compel compliance? And that's what I see ultimately a lot of this as. Groups seem to be okay with ceding control of our liberties to corporations through this idea that they're private corporations. But what I really think it is they're fighting back against something I don't like. So it's fine. It's a means to an end. But where do they think that the solution is solved? Because you can't. Prohibition didn't work. I mean, the war on drugs doesn't work. People don't stop fucking because they don't have resources to take care of kids. They just have a bunch of fucking.
I'm sure the UK's porn restrictions have stopped everyone into that real kinky shit.
You can't
masturbating.
You can't compel compliance.
No, you can't.
I mean, at least not completely, but. I think if you really do try to crack down, you can unify what would otherwise be disparate opposition groups through this unifying theme of subjugation, right? We're all on the outside of society. We got to stick together. I don't know what I'd like to. I'd like to hear from some of the other people in the room. Are there any thoughts from the ladies over there?
I mean, I've heard some people talking before we got off topic a little bit about having a separate, not right or left side, but an other side platform for people to fund YouTubers and other people like that. And I feel like that's just not solving the problem, right? Like, you can disagree all you want with people and what their content's putting out there, but I agree with, I think, the majority group idea here that people should just be able to say what they want. And if people disagree with them or agree with them, then they can say that too. And then eventually over time, if enough people disagree with them, then at least you're logically putting out there why it's a bad idea instead of just censoring it and being like, oh, you can't talk about this. Well, why not? How come you're doing that? And then you're not focusing on the real issue. Well,
the idea, and this is also what Joe Rogan said about this whole Patron thing, which is where we started. He said, if people didn't like what that guy had to say, then the market should have shown it by his subscribers dwindling. And then he would go, oh shit, I'm making a lot less money saying goofball shit like the big bad word. And maybe I won't do that in the future. Or maybe I'll think about my words more carefully. But I think your stance, what you just said, I think it would rub some people the wrong way, but they go, what if? Like this idea that words are violence, hate crime is or hate speech is violence. Like, what about the dangers, our current dangers, of allowing people to say whatever they want, even if it is hateful?
Well, that's the same thing that you were talking about, is fear of your neighbor, right? Fear that if someone says something bad and other people start agreeing with it, it's going to become this whole movement. It's like, well, that's what happens when you have free speech, right? People are going to say things. If I say something and maybe other people think it's wrong, but a lot of people start agreeing with it and I think it's right, well, that happened, and tough shit. And if other people disagree with it, then they can start their own thing and try to go against it. But either way, you're having a public debate on a public platform. And even if it's being moderated by a private entity, they don't have the right to tell me what I can and can't say in a public area.
Well, they can have the right, though.
Well, they shouldn't, though. And that's the problem, right? Yeah. They shouldn't be able to.
But why? Why shouldn't they?
Because it's a public area. Like, it's the, town square thing all over again. if you're gonna have someone private running something public, you know, which side are you gonna have governing what rules they can and can't abide by? And it's
and that's an interesting that's an interesting argument, is that whether or not it is implicit or explicit. I think it's a good argument to make that if you are in a public place and someone does something, right, to prevent you from using that public space in the way that you want to, they are agents of the government, regardless of whether it's implicit or explicit, right? Because if they are oppressing your rights in a public space, then it is the government's job to stop them. Right, they are part of the social contract we have with our government is to create a society that abides by the laws that we have written and then enforce those laws. Right now, granted, it doesn't necessarily mean protect you, but it does mean enforce the laws as we have, which include laws of free speech. So if you are in a public place, you have within a very large reason access to, the ability to speak freely without oppression from the government. And when someone starts to move in there, they are, as I said, acting as agents of the government. Whether or not that the government wants them to or not, it is also the government's job, I think, to make sure that whoever is doing that, if anyone, is doing it the way, within the rules of what we have expect the law. Does that make sense to everybody?
It does, but it raises a question that I would have from the other side. If you deem somebody, if you say to somebody, you have to continue to allow access to your platform to something that can be detrimental to your business, are you compelling them to spend money to lose money? I mean, it costs money to hold up a platform, and how is that okay?
It costs money to censor one, too.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the reason why the YouTube climate right now, almost 2 years since the initial proper adpocalypse, possibly more. I don't. Again, being directly not involved, I don't have the timeline 100%, but it's been at least a year or two or so since the adpocalypse proper started. And a lot of what I have seen from the YouTubers I watch, and I mainly watch YouTube for my video viewing entertainment, in response to this and what they've described, and every situation is a bit different, of course, but the root cause is the same. YouTube is trying to use some concoction of moderators, community flagging, and algorithms to enforce not just free speech and community guidelines, but also things like copyright and what have you. And they put these systems in place, they tweak them with some type of undetermined regularity. And they are very, again, as I mentioned earlier, very opaque about it. But they're clearly spending the money and the resources, and they're trying to find the most, it looks like, at least to my eye, the most elegant solution to keep as many people happy as possible, keep the ad revenue coming in, and not fuck themselves. Because they are a private organization whose main concern is themselves. And they are, that has led to systems that functionally operate on a guilty till proven innocent sort of basis, which for a private company may not matter in many cases, but for, again, the whole public space thing, that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about, so I don't want to retread too much.
And can I point out that for the libertarians out there, right, who are fuming at the idea of what you just said, Bill, that you are forcing a company potentially to spend money to lose money because they might force you to host something, force you to host something that is not good business, right? You should go back to the idea that this entire discussion that we're having is a libertarian's dream, where this public space that we're talking about is something that you pay to access. You pay another private company to access, right? Because the internet is, for the most part, seems to be legally deemed public space, right? But you still have to pay to access it, and it is
Comcast, Verizon, somebody,
and it is administered by private companies, right? So this is an entirely private thing, right? that has been deemed to be public space because of the ease with which everyone can access it. Similar to like a mall, right? Mall is private property, but it's deemed public space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the internet seems to be legally so far, at least the Supreme Court and other courts have decided that it is public space, which is administered by and charged access for other private companies. Like, this is a libertarian stream, right? This is people created things that people have use for and can be used publicly for the most part, and is all administered by private companies, but there are still protections that apply from the government to people, individual citizens there, right? And when you have deputized these companies to run this, then those, like, as agents of the government in that case, administering a public space, they still have to uphold the laws of the government, which, you know, the Constitution is the supreme law of our government.
And hey, you know what? I'll bet you Google gets all kinds of fun tax subsidies.
I thought the
Might as well.
Patriot Act was our supreme legal document.
Look, some people still look at the Articles of Confederation and say they were illegally thrown out.
Couldn't be because they were
I
dog
kind of
shit.
wanted to crack a joke, but I'm going to steer away from the Confederacy before people think I'm some sort of
That
maniac.
wasn't not the Confederacy, the Articles of Confederation, the ones that predated the Constitution.
Was that
Yeah,
the one
okay, I
with the
didn't-
Jedi Order in it? Or
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it made in my head a joke. pop
A
up.
good joke about the Confederacy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all, of course, ignoring the real rules that are written by the lizard people.
Yes.
Yeah.
The holy lizard tenants,
Yes.
as we know.
Led by Mark Zuckerberg.
And Hillary
So
Clinton.
that's a pretty
He
that's
is
a really
so
interesting
unsettling.
that's really an interesting perspective, because I didn't think of the inherent cost of like running a mall to make it safe for people to be in there.
Yeah.
For
You have
what-
to provide security, right?
Right. So here's what's, I think, sort of interesting. There's a threshold of moderation that you can apply to a forum, we'll say an internet forum, before you are responsible for the content on that site. Right. So if you just put up a site and you make sure it runs and you let everybody kind of put whatever they want on there, you individually are not, well, you as the corporation, I believe, I guess you could say individually, right, are not responsible for the content that's up there. So if there's a copyright violation, you guys aren't legally responsible, is my understanding. Now, if you begin to moderate over this threshold to actually manage content, then you become responsible. Well, Google, who owns YouTube, their whole model is targeted advertisement. So they are managing they're not just observing what their users are seeing. They're managing what they see. Even now, when they track you through Google search results are returned differently based on what they think you are trying to find.
Mm-hmm.
So your Google search for what is a Class 2 vehicle in Pennsylvania may be different from my search. We were trying to figure that out yesterday because we were going through the tolls in a moving truck, and I didn't know if we were Class 2 or not. So,
FYI, I'm pretty sure it's based on the number of axles that you have.
It was a class one.
I believe it is, and I think also commercial or non-commercial might have something to do with it.
And there's a weight limit at some point.
But here's the thing. So Google and specifically YouTube can never go to that place where they're not regulating, because all their money comes from managing their content, managing their users, guiding it. They have their hands all in the honeypot. So
they
now
are already building the echo chamber before anyone gets banned, by way of controlling what people see. Because I watch a lot of like gun stuff, regardless of the fact that I also watch a bunch of hippy dippy liberal shit
And porn.
and porn, mostly porn and crack videos, which there are a
porn's
lot of.
pretty
Crack
liberal.
videos? Yeah.
There's a lot of crack and porn on YouTube. I don't know if you guys know this.
Porn crack videos. Do you guys remember that pop-up videos.
Pop-up videos.
No.
VH1?
Yeah, pop-up videos. As you were going through, it would give you a fact about what was going on. I'm sorry, I want to keep it a little
It's
lighthearted.
gone. My train.
Michael
What?
Jackson's Thriller was
You're
the
talking about
best.
even
The echo chamber is already being made,
Yeah.
even though because you watch gun stuff and then you watch. Some
I
people
get
lefty stuff.
Prager University ads. Okay, first of all, AdBlock is wonderful. I recommend it.
Yep.
It's a pay what you want service, including nothing. I donate a little bit here and there when where I can. Oh my god! But if I'm watching YouTube on my phone through the YouTube app, AdBlock doesn't work, and I get to see Prager University videos. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Prager
No.
I
University.
am.
That's
I wanted to see if they were an actual university. They are not.
They are not.
What is it?
It's a right-wing think tank.
Yeah.
And they are retarded. They are stupid. I don't care how taboo that word is. They're fucking dumb. And I disagree with 99.9 continued % of what they say. Occasionally,
Not 100%.
an errant phrase falls out of someone's. First of all, I skip them all. But when I do happen, some of the more left-leaning shows I watch will look at videos hosted on PragerU, and they'll joke on them and shit. But beyond that, I only see them through these ads. And once in a blue moon, they'll start to like let a thought fall out of their heads that I'm like, oh, okay, a little bit, and then they lose me again immediately. Super duper right wing think tank, because I watch apolitical historical firearms videos where they are deliberately going out of their way to not put a political slant on anything and disclosing if and when they do. You know what I mean? They're just like, hey, this is a French revolver from the 1700s. Let's take it apart.
It existed.
And what runs on it? Trump ad, a border wall ad.
Oh my
And I'm like,
God.
fucking.
Do you get
I
ads
super
for border
du-
wall?
I don't know. I'm making shit up. But,
No,
but in
I
that
want
in
vein,
a
that.
border wall ad, it comes up as like the Dems don't want security for our nation.
Oh my
Picture
God.
of the wall, not
I have
quite
not
built.
seen this.
My favorite one that I've gotten so far is
Charmin in Spanish. Charmin
No, I
toilet
get a
paper
lot
in
of
Spanish.
Spanish.
I've
I
have
that
gotten
one
Spanish ads too.
multiple
It's weird.
times.
why do they think that I speak Spanish?
I use a VPN. Sometimes I'm in France and I still get a Spanish ad.
I'm watching like how to how to build a basketball net like foundation, and
In
then
Spanish.
it's in Spanish.
Good. My favorite ad was I believe a 2.5 minute Squatty Potty ad.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
I usually skip ads, and then I saw it was a Squatty Potty, and it was cartoony and ridiculous, and I watched the
Yes.
whole thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, wow.
My
Wow.
favorite political ad I've gotten so far is
Done
like,
learned something there.
they're like, "Hey, I'm President Donald Trump," and
oh shit, Trump's in video.
yeah, and you know what? I want you to
Trump
sign
in
this
video.
list that you're going to be my buddy in the next election. My staff is going to give me an updated list tonight, so I hope to see your name. I'm like, who the fuck thinks
You know what?
that he's reading a list?
Honestly,
They think
I
he
would.
Santa
No, no,
think
no,
he
no.
will.
I would.
Santa
I,
Trump.
I would never, ever
Dear
donate.
Trump,
Well, I'm
I
also
want
not allowed to donate.
a toy
but like,
train
Yeah.
and
A border wall.
And a wall.
a tricycle and
I would honestly not be one bit surprised if he doesn't ask for a list, at least a number of how many people donated to him. I would not be one bit surprised.
the man is like 80% ego. So
Yeah, that's
I'm
my
with you.
point. Is like
I'm
he,
with you.
he is
20%
the
here.
type of person that would sit there and like pour over how many people donated to him.
I can't
And how
believe
much?
that somebody's like, yeah, I'm motivated because old Donald is going to read my.
Apparently, it's all
my
old
name.
ladies.
Dear
Well, this
Donald.
character.
I work
was.
in a call center and I get people on a somewhat routine basis who also people who don't like him. First of all, people who like to voice their political opinions
Oh,
in a
we
very
hate that.
apolitical environment, honestly.
Yeah.
Great, sure, I'll hear you out. I'm paid by the hour. I don't care. So whatever. I just won't. I'm not going to feed into your shit, but say what you want. But among them, of course, are the pro-Trump guys. And I've literally heard he's just making America great again every single day. And I'm like, you are on more crack than me. And I didn't think
And
that
that's
was
impressive.
possible. I didn't think that was possible. I have a lot of crack. Have I mentioned that I like crack a lot?
And porn.
I don't know if I've mentioned it on
does not
previous
subscribe.
episodes.
And this is how much Jake likes crack. He
He does not even subscribe to Pornhub, and we know how much he likes porn.
I like it a lot.
But he does subscribe to Crack Hub.
Oh boy,
He has the premium Crack Hub
dude!
membership.
The box openings for new crap pipes, man.
Oh boy.
The crack brand reviews, which are very much a thing that I'm not making up right now.
There's
Pornhub,
not like strains, but brands.
just
Someone's
like
gonna
brands.
Google Crack Hub now.
and
be like,
just like,
"Ooh."
well, see, that's the thing.
See, crack is so polluted with extra shit that strains doesn't apply because there's so little of the coca leaf left. So instead, I'm looking at the other ingredients. Right? Ooh, that's got extra rat poison.
My
Give me some
crack
of that.
isn't polluted at all because I bought a bidet attachment.
Oh my god!
You got to go.
Wait, is that more or less polluted? I think it's more.
No,
It's nice and
less
clean.
polluted.
Getting your shit on it.
Gets-
Whistling.
That's
good.
why you get the shower wand. Yeah.
And
You can
shove it
clean
up
your
there.
Shower.
eye hole.
First of all, why is water involved now?
It's a bidet.
For crack, though.
Yeah.
we're talking about other cracks.
I see.
Other cracks.
your sexy.
I'm
seams.
on too much crack to have realized the double entendre. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You like that
You got
one?
tunnel vision when it comes to crack. It's all right.
I'm really focused on my crack.
Wait, what's going on?
I'm really focused on my crack with that shower wand.
I'm focused on your crack all the time when you're not in the shower.
No.
All right, we've devolved into butt crack jokes. It's an hour and a half in. I think it's time for a break.
All right.
He said
All right,
sexy seams.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I heard that. I wasn't super entertained.
God damn it! We'll be back with more sexy seams on Two Guns No Ammo.
Catch you on the flip side.
Can't hear you.
Welcome back. All right, so I was in the bathroom,
Okay.
and
Always a good start.
I was ruminating over my earlier discussion we had about the Confederate flag versus the monarchy, and I realized a major flaw in my point.
Uh-oh.
I've learned something here. You're seeing it in action.
Oh my god! This never happens on a micro camera anywhere.
I was saying, how can you be upset with the flag, one of the flags for the Confederacy, the one entity that existed until it was crushed, when there's a monarchy that represents, in my mind, all repressive monarchies, which isn't fair, because the royal family represents the English monarchy, and it has in fact evolved to a point where it is no longer super harmful.
Yep.
So I was being too inclusive on my side, which made me which made me blind to this idea that it currently in its current state is really not a bad thing. So,
You know,
all right.
about a year ago, I don't remember if it was the New Year's Eve or the first episode of 2018, but we had one of my good friends, Matt, on the show, and we discussed at length things like police shootings and institutional racism to some extent. And I don't know if it's going to become a tradition of the first podcast of the year,
It's gonna be very
covering
political.
extremely political, controversial shit. I'm not opposed, but it's it's a little intense. But I'm okay with it. I hope everyone enjoyed, because that was a very good discusun.
Well, that
got
was
interesting.
That gun rights one was like one of our most listened to.
It's true. It's true. It was a dedicated gun. Well, there was an initial gun stuff misfire that was more gun stuff, and then there was the controversial gun control in the wake of Parkland.
Yeah.
With my other friend Tim, who has an FFL, which doesn't speak for a whole lot, but he did have to go through some of the legal proceedings that most people don't know about to be able to legally assemble and sell firearms.
Because your average citizen can make your own weapon.
You can make you right now. Any one of us could make our own gun at home as long as it complies with NFA regulations. That is, the barrel's long enough, it's not fully automatic, etc. It's not sound suppressed. Without doing any paperwork whatsoever, those firearms would not be transferable or sellable in any sense of the word. I don't know what it would come down to if you died and someone were to inherit it.
You should be able to inherit it.
I think you probably can, because what are they going to do, melt it down?
Well, no, you have to launch it into the sun. I mean, common sense.
That's the obvious alternative. But anyway, yeah, we tend to get political for some reason at the top of the year and occasionally sprinkled here and there. And thank you all for suffering that if that's not your cup of tea, but I hope it is, because I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, we took 3 weeks off, and we've discussed a little bit. I just asked these guys if they wanted to have more of like an organized debate, and like I watched a monk debate the other day, and they summarily said no. But I think we're going to experiment with different kinds of content in this coming year. I am working with somebody who's actually going to build the site, so we'll have a site soon.
What?
It's this year is our year.
A website?
Yeah, we're in a website.
Ah.
What's that?
Yeah.
Because somebody was supposed to do
Do
it.
we have a Facebook page, though?
We've had a Facebook page.
We do.
A lot of people like it. I have no idea why they
Real
like
question
it.
is,
You should like
what's
it.
up with our Twitter
You should
page?
like it.
We tweet on occasion.
Who's we?
Like
You
once a year.
twatted?
Not you.
I've twatted.
Yep.
Some people are in twatted.
What did you twat on? This is why I get the big bucks. What a segue. What did you twat on?
I tweeted that we released our latest episode.
No, no, no.
What device did you
physically-
use?
Yeah.
Ah, yes, I did in tweet an iPhone.
Ooh. I entreat you to tell me more.
Oh God.
I dare say.
I do declare.
Yes. So since we've last met, Apple's fallen on some rough times, it seems. They're only 600 billion.
Yeah, right. 600.
Hard times.
Chump change.
If my dick
I
was
keep that
600
money in my wallet.
If my dick was $600 billion hard, it would be a black hole in my pants.
What?
That.
What does that even mean?
Density beyond density.
You said hard though, not dense.
Yeah, I
Like
bet
it's
if you
so
I bet if you
dense
did
and
the
concentrated.
These are different properties.
I
of
bet if you did
material.
the scratch test against a black hole, it would be hard.
What?
A scratch test?
That's how you
Against
test hardness. You rub them against each other, and whatever
What do you rub against a black hole?
That's
Dicks.
the joke.
Fix.
Dicks, apparently.
anything, and the black hole will cause the other thing to lose some of its material.
You're an
Or-
idiot, Frank.
Yeah.
Hard
So we
though.
talked before when both myself and Lisa bought iPhones in the most recent cycle that they've created. And I think Lisa was happy. Well, yes, Lisa was happier with hers.
Happier.
Yes, happier with hers than I was with mine. And I was envious of hers over mine. And now I bought the 10S. I also recently found out that it is 10S, not XS.
I still call it X.
So do I. So, I bought the 10S, and I am disappointed in it for I don't even remember how much it was, like $1,100, something stupid. Way too much money for a fucking phone. Yeah, exactly. Bill's face is like, you are an idiot. Holy shit, whoever spends that much money.
Called him an idiot for that black hole routine.
Yeah,
But Frank.
Come on.
I know.
How many dildos could? Why am I making dick jokes? It's me this time. Fuck me.
Got him.
I've infiltrated Bill's mind. My dick and my dick jokes
All
have
hail the
infiltrated.
monarchy.
So you spent $1,100, and was
Oh,
it?
boy.
And what was your first moment when you think you might have done goofed?
When he saw my phone.
Yeah, when I saw her phone,
Why?
like 6 weeks later, she bought her phone for like $500 less than mine almost.
I have the XR, 10R.
the 10R, which is the quote unquote budget version of the current cycle of phones, which is still probably priced about the same or very close to most of the other premium phone products out there, which, I mean, that makes sense because Apple only makes premium products, right? So when you think their budget, quote unquote, version is going to be more in line with a lower end of the premium spec, which is exactly how it's priced, right? Their budget phone is priced more along the lines of the cheaper of the premium phones. And honestly, I think it's like the value proposition for those who are unfamiliar with what I just said. The value proposition for that phone is like significantly better than the XS. And it gets even better when weeks after it debuted in late October, I think is when you bought it, because you bought it within a week of it coming out.
Yeah.
So within weeks, as in recently around the Christmas season, Apple started discounting the value. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I was sad to hear that because I had already bought it.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of such a thing?
And not too long after they discount their phones, they come out and they say, well, we're probably not going to make as much money as we thought we were going to make. Because overall, like they charge too much fucking money for their goddamn products. Like it's not that complicated, and they're only starting to realize that now. I can't believe
After
it took this long.
Decades of doing this shit because people bought it.
Yeah.
Like Frank.
Well, sexy, stinky, smelly Steve Jobs isn't around anymore, so...
What?
Sexy,
Stinky,
stinky, smelly.
Yeah, so
Steve Jobs is very dead and very smelly.
No, those
I
are
presume.
synonyms.
I think
But
his...
still
I think
double
his,
sexy.
I think his...
the stinkier, the sexier, baby.
I think his monkey funk finally wore off the product, so people are like, oh, I'm not... Whatever.
You mean his pheromones?
Honestly, though, all right, here's the thing. XS is a beautiful and extraordinarily well-functioning piece of hardware. It boils down to how much they charged for it, right?
It's not the product itself; it's the pricing.
Exactly, it really is. I think the XS compared to the other phones that I've played with of this current cycle of phones, like the Galaxy S9 and all that stuff, like it feels better, it reacts better, the hardware specs are better. There are very few things that other premium phones do better than it.
What are you guys doing with your phones that you could possibly derive above $800 worth of performance? And I don't mean this in like, I'm not setting you up to get you with a gotcha. I literally cannot imagine it. Like I spent $300 on my phone. I'll keep it until I simply cannot anymore.
I can tell you now, having now spent more. So my last phone that I bought, I thought I spent around a little more than I wanted to spend, which was about $800, right? But I did that under the assumption that I would be able to sell it for about $300 when I finished it. So to me, I was like, all right, so I'm spending a net $500 on it, right? So I buy it for $8, sell it for $3, spending a net $500. And I was actually able to do it. Luckily, I had a friend from college who does not live locally. He happened to put up on Facebook within a week of me buying the new phone that he was looking for a new iPhone. So I sent him a message and was like, hey, I'll sell you my 7 Plus. I had a 7 Plus before this. I reviewed it a year and a half ago or whatever, and he was willing to buy it for about $300, which is, what I was hoping to get for it. So, I don't think $500 seems like an appropriate amount of money to spend on a phone, and I don't think I will spend. I'll keep this. Yeah, I don't even know how long. The one nice thing with Apple products in general is that they do tend to last. Mm-hmm. Their phones have been notorious, like they've been in the news a lot for nerfing their phones essentially and cutting down the processor speed because their battery life will start to die to help preserve the battery, which is a dumb practice. But they are replacing the battery now for a relatively small fee of like $30 or something like that.
Bad.
Sorry?
Not bad at all.
Yeah. I think I will be able to keep this phone for 4 or 5 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And when I think about it, I'm like, if I amortize the cost over those 4 or 5 years, assuming that I actually keep it that long, it starts to become a decent buy. But that is a long time to keep a phone.
So I just paid off my car. I've got a 10-year-old Corolla, 128,000 miles, and I've been like a pig in shit.
Dude, isn't it great? I paid mine off like 8 months ago, 9 months ago, something like that, like earlier in 2018. And it is like, I thought that I was going to buy, I told myself, all right, I'll pay my car off in the spring, wait 6 months, save up a couple $100 from not having a payment, trade it in, take that cash, go buy a new car because I want four-wheel drive, right? But I've spent now 8 months or 9 months or whatever without a car payment, and I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Well, I was cruising up here with Genevieve, who's on the podcast. I don't know if you guys heard her at all today.
I've talked quite a bit, okay?
And shifting from first into second was like getting bashed with a frying pan. Oof. I was like, oh no. So I don't know if I'm going to get much more value added time. And the way that relates to what you're talking about is if I picked up the phone with 4 to 5 years of expected usage, there's no way that I would do it. It's either my big fat ass blows out its transmission or my fat fingers punch through the screen or whatever, right? You know, I bump into a wall for the 1,000th time in its life and it finally explodes. You have more hope than I do.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe I'm wrong. The thing that I think is most telling, right, is that everything always starts at the top. Obviously, that seems like a truism, right, to most people. But what I mean by that is we have been in so long, the people that are tech people, like us, realistically, we are tech people. We like to have the latest and greatest technology. We might not always buy it because of monetary constraints, but we like gadgets, right? We have Xboxes and PlayStations and flat screen TVs and
Ooh, should I talk about my upgrade?
Oh yeah. Exactly. And we like it. But that is wearing in general. People are buying phones less often. Like I bought a phone. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I did have the same phone for a very long time. But most people bought phones about every 18 to 24 months for the past 10 to 12 years. Most people buy new TVs every 4 to 5 years as the technology increases. Most people are buying tablets and laptops every 2 to 3 years as the technology increases. But within the past year, that trend has slowed. And it starts at the top where the prices are highest, right? Because people maybe a few years ago, as the technology pace, the increase of technology really started to slow down from model year to model year. The $2,500 to buy the new premium product just didn't really seem like that great of a buy. Whereas, let's say in 2010 to 2011, you might have a processor speed increase by 45%. That seems like maybe I will shell out another $2,500 and sell this old one for $1,000.
It's pretty crazy to me that it's slowed down ever. Like, you think when times are good and times are pretty good.
Yeah, economically, like we're in a good climate.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's what I'm trying to get at. And like it has been for a while. I would think that like conspicuous consumption would just continue along its typical trend as long as the money was flowing, but evidently not.
Yeah, no. It seems this is a very strange phenomenon where the economy seems to be doing well, but people do not want to purchase, at least right now, the most premium products as frequently as they used to.
Is it millennials destroying another thing, or can we finally?
No, we can always blame
Still the millennials.
I for one go through about 4 crates of avocados a week just for toast.
Really?
I have like 2 slices of toast.
Okay, time out.
And I put like 4
I thought
avocados.
you said
on
Al
it.
Qaeda.
Yeah, I thought you said Al Qaeda's.
I also
And I was on board with it too.
Okay, so here's how it works. All right, Al Qaeda gives me money for promoting their message on our podcast. Obviously, which is
what
what
do
I
they
do.
pay you in
Avocados.
dinars or opium?
They pay me in opium. I then trade it for avocados, and then I put the avocados on my toast, and that's how I live.
Well, where's the trickle down, you fucker?
So I want to point out, yeah, you see this, Lisa.
Oh, and I buy crack too. I mean, obviously.
When we were in California last week, right, we went to this place to meet her friend for lunch, and we went to this nice little cafe on Ventura Boulevard. And
did they put toast on the avocados?
Oh, even better. Fuck. On the menu,
Toast
I ordered
on the avocados.
I ordered a quesadilla, right? Because I am a typical slob. And it was like, chicken and cheese on some tortillas. Hell yeah. Throw some sour cream on there. She looks at me and she goes, Frank, I want avocado toast. but I don't want to order it myself because I don't want to be seen ordering avocado toast. So she made me order. She made me order avocado toast for her.
And then they asked to clarify the order, and I had to answer, so they still knew it was mine. It was so embarrassing.
So it was a straw purchase avocado toast.
It was so delicious, though. Oh my god!
I think
it was the best
you
I've
guys
ever
violated
had.
a few laws there. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to report.
We'll never
this.
be able to afford a house if I'm ordering avocado
Hello,
toast. for
California.
her.
Hello.
All right. Well,
I'm writing you today, California, to report a misdeed I have come upon.
so
Straw purchase of avocado toast.
that's interesting. I'm very interested to see how Apple is going to react because, back in the day, I guess they were the computer. It just works. They were the It Just Works company, and now they've been like this almost pseudo luxury brand for ever, a status symbol.
15 years it seems like about since the MacBook Pro first debuted. I think would be and the iMac, which was about 2003, 2004. I think.
Now what are they going to be? Are they going to keep up there with your Lamborghinis or whatever? Well,
Yeah, I do think that they're gonna keep up there with like the premium product because like their margins are so great and all that stuff. But like, I think what's even more interesting is how's the rest of the tech industry gonna react to this that makes all the other hardware, right? Because you have other cell phone makers, but not just cell phone makers. I mean, you have computer companies, like every tech company out there, down to Microsoft and Sony making, to bring this back to video games, back to Microsoft and Sony making, consoles. There's a rumor that they're already going to be creating the next Xbox. I don't remember what the it's called, Project something or other.
probably Project Sandcastle.
Yeah.
Fucking, their names are always the worst.
But like historically, I think, and people will disagree with me, but I think for what you get, like game consoles have been pretty reasonably priced.
Mm-hmm.
The most expensive one that I remember was like the Xbox One X and Xbox One and Xbox One X when they first debuted were $500.
Yeah, I think that the phone still serves, in general opinion, a greater purpose and is also a larger status symbol than a game system would be. Like, I got the new phone. And you'd be like, you want to come to my house, bro? I got the new PlayStation 7. And you're like, well, cool, I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree, but it's like, I'm interested to see how that will trickle down to these other hardware types where, okay, noticeably consumers are fed up with a constant inundation of new products to buy at ever higher prices.
Mm-hmm.
These companies are trying to push newer products with higher prices to make more money in an attempt to further, increase their margins. And there is a disconnect there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen, pretty obviously now we've seen the top of that. So now how do these other companies react to that ahead of time? And how does that flow down to us as consumers to want to buy these things, especially as we see video game companies coming out with new consoles? Xbox is rumored to shove one out in the next, now less than 2 years, probably 18 months. Start selling it in about the summer of 2021. Sony will probably come out with a new PlayStation, stuff like that. So they came out with the PS4 Pro. Well, this is supposed to be like a new, like the next one could be the Xbox One Z, or not the Xbox One Z, the Xbox 2 or whatever, instead of the Xbox One X, where they upgrade the original base version with better specs and a completely new design. I don't know. Does this scare them into rethinking their strategy?
I'd really like it if Xbox would target specifically millennials with their next console title. Like
the Xbox One Me.
Xbox.
They already tried
Avocado
Windows
toast.
Me.
No,
Microsoft has already put out a Windows Me, and it did not do well.
Microsoft.
Millennium Edition.
Yeah.
It was garbage.
Microsoft, Xbox, generalized on Wii. Microsoft.
That would be the
Xbox,
Nintendo. On Wii.
Impending hopelessness. Something like that. Like Microsoft, Xbox. I tweet about suicide in a joking manner, but it's only half joking. That kind of. I think that would really represent millennials well.
That's my favorite console.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm interested to see how that plays out. I'm really interested to see if it does translate to other parts of the technology market, like especially. So a lot of companies talk about trying to get into the gaming, especially gaming PC and gaming laptop market, because you make a lot more money than just the standard budget version of a laptop or a desktop.
Yeah.
Very few have been able to actually do it. Right. Think of Alienware. I think Dell bought Alienware. Right.
Yeah,
so
Dell got out of the consumer PC market for the most part at some point.
They did, but they're back in it now. Yeah. And that's my point. Like, are we going to start to see prices come down on these things?
I'd love it.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if
Touch my body.
we've been seeing increasing prices for all this stuff for the past 10 years basically. I don't remember now, not counting inflation, because it hasn't been too huge in the past couple of years. But an Xbox 360 when it came out, I think was $300.
Some of that.
Yeah.
An Xbox One X 10 years later, so I think the Xbox 360 came out in 2005, right? And I think the Xbox One X came out in like 2016. So almost 10 years later, a little over 10 years later, you're talking about a 60% more than 50% increase in price for the latest, greatest console, right? Because the Xbox One X debuted at $500, the 360 at that $300. So that's a huge increase, 60% realistically.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. Jake, how long do you want to talk about your Spaceship Enterprise upgrade, or do you want to kick in next week?
I could do it. I think pretty quick.
Okay.
So if y'all have been listening for a while, I have a pretty nice computer. I built it myself about a little under a year ago for about $2,400.
We went to China together. We got the rare earth minerals out of the ground.
We pledged our allegiance to the Chinese flag.
We smeltered it down.
Did a shitload of crack, and then we came back.
Of course.
And built this computer.
Not opium?
And, well, they had some. I was like, listen.
They had wars over that.
I have needs, all right? And they were like, okay, I got you. And they had crack. It was fine. But so I didn't make any changes to the computer itself. What I had was, multiple inputs, an audio receiver on my desk with my monitor on top of it. It was a bit too high. I had another monitor precariously balanced atop what's really like a MIDI keyboard riser, literally clamped to it. Every time I would bump that part of my desk, like the whole thing would wobble, and I would my heart would skip a beat. So what's happened now is I have a receiver, like an audio stand. You would normally put a TV above or on top of this media stand for like consoles and stuff, but I didn't do that. I just tucked it underneath this other desk I have. Then the receiver and the Xbox, and with room for other stuff, is now down there. And I've got a double monitor floating mount.
Those are so nice.
It's pretty slick, man. Yeah. Gas, $100, double floater with gas spring. Adjustable gas spring.
What's a floater, in case people don't know what a floater is?
These are just like boom arms, right? I have a unit clamped to the back of my desk with two boom arms coming off on either side that adjust, up and down. They swivel here to and fro, and the base plate mounting things that you affix the monitors to can rotate freely either direction. So I could flip these monitors sideways if I wanted to. If I were like still editing a lot of sheet music or something, it would come in real handy. So that frees up a bunch of desk space, gets rid of the whole precarious balancing thing for the backup monitor here that I use for voice meter and some other auxiliary type of functions. So it's just right here. It's just totally separate by
It is close for our listeners.
Yeah.
It is close.
It is right here.
I can pull it to and from me. I can flip it around. I can do whatever I need to. That's really nice. Not having to being able to adjust this monitor more freely. The stand that came with it. It's an Acer Predator 32-inch 4K computer monitor. Pretty nice unit. It's a little cheaper now. I think it's around like the $700 to $800 range at this point.
Sexual predator or child predator?
Neither.
Alien Predator.
That one. That one. Yeah.
It's right here.
I like porn and crack, but I don't fuck with that shit. Don't even joke about that. You heinous individual, Bill.
Censored.
And I also upgraded my TV here. I got a Vizio 55-inch 4K. It's a D55F2 if you want the model number. Vizio has two lines of 4K televisions. One is slightly more economical with a bit less polish. I went for the nicer one. Frank, at some point you reviewed your 60-inch TV.
Yep.
This is the exact same line, but 5 inches smaller.
Yep.
And exactly large enough to sit in the space I have for it and still be able to swivel
This is new.
with enough freedom.
This is stupendous.
It
Slick.
Holy fuck.
Yeah, I didn't notice it either when I walked
it
in,
also-
and I'm like, how did I miss this?
I went from a
awesome
42
TV?
to a 55, and no one notices at first.
Well, I was admiring this really new desktop background that you got.
That is, I like to rotate the backgrounds. This is a shot of Nero from DMC5, which is coming out this year, which I'm pretty excited for. Keep an eye out for that on the channel because I'll be talking about it in depth when I have the chance. But yeah, just you know, a few $100 to work here, just to make things more efficient, economical, and fun in the case of the TV itself.
Great job.
But what I will touch on quickly is that this TV, this 55-inch TV, fits exactly in the space I have for it. I have on like the main part of my desk where I'm actually sitting to do my work, I have like some desktop monitors and some M audio and just PC speakers and my main monitor itself. Then to the left of where this 55-inch is, I have a speaker stand with like a Sony, you know, like home entertainment speaker on it. Wired to the receiver, and there's exactly enough room between the monitor speakers on my main desk and the entertainment speaker on the left here for this TV to be able to sit and swivel within it and not hit anything. And the way I was able to get it within such a tight tolerance was because of a little website I happened to find called displayspecifications.com. It couldn't be any more straightforward than that. And if you have anything like anything approaching a mainstream model television or a computer monitor, you can find it on this website, and it has a complete spec sheet.
Shut up.
Complete spec sheet, number of colors, the inputs that are available, weight with or without the base, the width of the screen, the width of the unit, the depth, right, is down to like hundredths of an inch, and in millimeters and centimeters, and like everything you could like power consumption, everything you could possibly need. And I looked at that and I was like, oh. I took the tape measure and I measured what kind of space I had, and I went on the website. And the brand was recommended by Frank, right? Because I mean, your TV is awesome, and this is the same idea again, but a bit smaller. And it just so happened that this not only was a good value for the money as a TV, but it fit exactly within my space tolerances. And I wouldn't have been able to determine that if not for a website such as that. So
It's a great website.
God
it
bless
is
that website.
very handy. I just found it by searching for the specs, and okay, sweet. And I wound up using it to check the weights on my other. I have 3 screens in total. I use it to check the weight on these 2 screens to go through Amazon and find the right boom arm, because there are millions of monitor suspension systems of various types and applications. They all have a weight limit, a stated weight limit. And I found one that would fit, because this Acer Predator is pretty heavy. It's about 17.5 pounds, which is right at the threshold for some, or a little above for some monitor floating systems. This thing can support up to 20 or so per arm.
So like one toddler,
Yeah.
like a toddler.
I could bolt a toddler to this if I really...
but only
If I wanted to have them up and out of the way,
Yes.
but didn't want to actually actively care for them.
Yeah.
Just
Just kind of like as decoration.
I have
look
those
at it.
7 kids I mentioned who I've never
Yes,
met.
it's
But
true.
if one comes by, I can just just prop them up on
Throw it
it.
up
Well, they're
there.
adults now.
Probably.
All right. Very good.
That's it.
I
So
love it, man.
the battle station has enjoyed some upgrades after the holiday season.
It is becoming the Borg.
Merry Christmas.
All right. I want to thank everybody for joining us for our debut episode of season 3. Keep an eye out for good things coming this year. Jake, I want to make a specific request. Can you title this something along the lines of like conspiratard Billy No Brains destroyed with facts and logic by Jake and Frank and Beans for apologizing for Confederacy, or something exciting so that we get some views?
All of our titles are very much clickbait, as you've all noticed.
Yep.
Yes.
So I'm happy to do that for you, Bill.
Thanks, buddy.
We are skipping. I don't know if we mentioned we were skipping the Steam sale today because there's a football game about to come on, and we ain't got the time.
The
And
birds.
we also went long at the top. So
Yeah, baby.
Whee.
Go long.
At the top.
Foosball.
That's how I do it.
Innuendo. Once again, thank you all for joining us. And don't forget to never, not ever, but switch what? Zip, zap, zoom, and cock 'em, lock 'em, and rock 'em, baby. Shh. Blah, 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 blah. Go Birds.